The following is a paid program. The content is provided by the advertiser. WPSL, its staff, management, and ownership are not responsible for the content. Investment involves risk. Prior to making any investment, an investor should meet suitability requirements. Past results are not necessarily indicative of future performance. Neither the opinions expressed nor the information provided constitutes a recommendation to purchase or provide investment advice. The material presented is not a substitute for obtaining professional advice from a qualified person or firm. Securities offered through Centaurus Financial, member FINRA and SIPC. And now, the host of the TEAM MARTEK Hour, Joe Martek.
What TEAM MARTEK? Joe Martek's here by himself, and it's not
team.
It's not even a holiday. What is this? Dan, I guess
It's the Joe Martek Show.
It's the Joe Martek Show today. You know, just for those of you that are happen to be a new listener, and there might be one out there. We've only been doing these shows since 2004, give or take. We don't know exactly because we started somewhere before Hurricanes Francis and Jean, and we do remember the date that was in 04.
Mm-hmm.
You know, though,
it's kind of hard to forget.
Some
what
things
year
stick
that
in
was.
your mind.
Yeah.
Well, the one before that was even more memorable. Was Andrew? That was 92.
Two.
You know, you don't forget that one either. Even though we were a long ways away, but it was such a devastating thing.
Yeah.
that-
But we still did like the line at Home Depot for all the wood we could
Oh,
get,
yeah,
and we
yeah,
waited for
yeah.
the truck to bring more and
All that good
good
stuff,
stuff.
yeah.
Hoard your water,
And-
hoard
and
your bread, and
Publix and Walmart were out of water. You know, all that bottled water and stuff. You know, you guys
so
think.
we even though we didn't get the wind, we went through the storm.
Yeah. Yep.
Sort of.
Anyway, it was. So the whole concept, Joe Martek's a stockbroker, financial advisor, securities principal, lots of licenses. I think I've got 4 or 5 state licenses, and then I've got a 6, 7, 24, 66. They got all these
But
numbers.
who's counting, right?
Well, you know, it's called. I don't even have a clue what they are anymore because I'm done taking.
But you have an assistant at your office keeps you square, right?
No. Better than that. Between email, if I have a test that I have to take for continuing education,
Okay.
I get emails from the people that want me to buy the test. So that's kind of a clue.
Mm-hmm.
And then if I get close to when the dates are run out, my broker-dealer says, Joe, you want to stay working?
Mm-hmm.
They don't say that, but that's
Right.
what
Well,
they're
that's
saying.
what they mean,
they're
right?
saying, you need to take this and you need to have it done by this date.
Sure.
Otherwise, you lose your licenses. And then the state comes back and says, now listen, in case you miss this date and you want to stay, it's going to cost you an extra $250 fine, and we may give you a couple extra weeks or something. You know, so they give you enough clues to motivate you to pay attention. But with all that said and done, I've got a lot of clients here and in 13 other states because people move, et cetera. But many, many years ago, I realized in order to be a credible professional, you can't handle all of the questions people have. So normally a credible professional is going to align himself or herself with other credible professionals to help your clients. So first 2 people were Dan Warren, independent insurance agent, big word, independent. Independent means they don't work for one insurance company. It means they work for the client. And Dan, in my humble opinion, forget that word humble, not too humble opinion, is the premier independent insurance agent on the Treasure Coast because he has pushing 100 companies, and he's been in business for, I think, 37 years. He looks old, and that's because he is, you know. But anyway, unfortunately, he's not as old.
He looks good for an old guy.
Yeah,
There you go.
lucky him. Did I ever tell you that? And I probably did tell you that story. We do another radio show
Somewhere
down in Palm City at 4 o'clock today, WCNO 89.9 FM, but I would never tell you that.
It's shameless promotion.
I know. So we get this phone call. We're doing the radio show, and this lady calls in and says, I want to tell you a story. She goes, I've got a horse ranch out here in Palm City, and one day I see this old guy with white hair roaming around with a camera, and he's taking pictures. So she says, I go up to him, and I said, who are you? And he says, I'm Dan Warren. What are you doing here? He says, well, you've looked for a quote for your insurance, and I'm going to turn information in to see how well I can do. And she goes, oh, good. So anyway.
He's been to my house, too.
Is that right?
Sure.
So anyway.
He's my agent.
so he roams around with the property taking pictures. And I love the way she started it. Old guy. White hair. That was the only part that I cared about. But her testimonial was he saved her $2,500 a year, got her the same or better coverage. And that's what Dan does. because he's got the power of being an independent. He's got multiple companies, and he can shop companies and do the right things for people. And Dan's been in the business long enough that when he turns in an application, and if he does it properly, the underwriters look at his business more smiley than people that look and say, do we have a guy that's trying to con somebody and get somebody insured that shouldn't be? And I mean, as goofy as that sounds.
Yeah, but he knows what he's talking about, too. Then when he represents you with the company, he's looked at what you have. And it's not this, you can call him up and say, I've got a 5-bedroom house, and it could be falling down.
Yeah, we don't know.
So they got to come take a look.
So anyway, he was number one. Number two was Greg Fasula, attorney. Why an attorney, people might ask. I mean, this sounds like a terrible thing, but one of the first things I do when I meet a new suspect or prospect is talk about a will or a trust. And my job, as I see it, is to put the cart and the horse in the proper order. Mm-hmm. People need to have such instruments. If I'm going to help with their money, quote, their estate, then we should have the cart and the horse in the proper order. And the biggest problem I had, or still have, with attorneys, now, you're going to have a hard time imagining this being true. Some are arrogant. Some are pretentious. Some are an absolute pain in a keister.
And many are very expensive.
And, very often intimidating people, I don't like them. And so when I started off years and years ago, I'd have a client.
I think they get that attitude because they're like right there, that close to the law.
Well,
they represent the law.
They're lawyers.
So, yeah, they
jurist doctors. I mean, they put in a lot of time to get those credentials, and
nobody wants to mess with the law.
No. So anyway, I met Greg after going through a number of attorneys and getting sick sometimes watching them. The attorneys would be really nice to me when I'm interviewing them. Then I'd bring a client to them, and all of a sudden they'd switch into the intimidation mode or into the pain in the rear end mode. So I met Greg Fasula, nice guy, took a client into him, nicer guy, patient, understanding, good listener, not arrogant, not pretentious. I said, Greg, they teach you that in law school? He goes, no. He said, he just happens to be the only attorney I know personally I'd like to have as a next-door neighbor. He's just a flat good guy. He's a good man. And we've both, my producer sitting here who's been doing these shows with us for a number of years. I can't remember how many.
The whole time.
A long time. We've watched him do good things for people. And I even have a client that brought me in like 10 pounds of documents from another attorney. And this attorney was charging her an arm and 40 legs. And she couldn't figure out what was in those things because, who could? So she wanted me to decipher them. So I came down to one page. This is what it said. And she says, well, that's not what it's supposed to say. And I said, well, this is...
Yeah, he's like, oh, great, all of that's wrong.
So...
something in that big pile is wrong.
She goes to see Greg. And Greg looks at stuff and explains and tells her what she's got, and she leaves. And she said, how much do I owe you? And he said, nothing. And she goes, why? He says, because you'll be back. Greg just happens to be one of the better people that I've ever known. And in spite of all that, he's an attorney. And in spite of all of that, he's also a liberal. You know that.
He's a moderate.
If you ask him...
he's not here, so I have to defend him.
Well, the only thing that I've heard him... Remember we talked about before the election and about under the current administration and the future wannabe administration, it was going to be free education. Well, Greg put himself through law school, and parents.
Well, he understands that anything you get for free is usually not worth it.
There's what happened. So that was when he was definitely not in favor of free education. Now, free means nothing. It's not free.
Right.
Free means taxpayers pay.
Someone pays.
Somebody has to pay. There's no such thing as free.
And when they have these free programs, how many actually? What are the results too? How many graduates do they kick out?
Well, there comes another thing.
Not that many.
Well. You said it just a second ago, and it's a lesson in life that most of us old people learned. And back years ago, when we didn't have the word allowance, it was called, if it's free, it has no value.
Unless it's buy one, get one free, because
Well,
BOGO is always fun. But
BOGO's
BOGO means that the price is built into the first one anyway.
Well, see, my girlfriend, and what was say? She's not the brightest bulb on the tree. Bless her heart. You know how this in the South.
Bless your heart doesn't really mean a good thing. It's not necessarily a good thing.
It doesn't mean good things at
gosh,
all.
are you stupid?
It's what was it? I was listening to Chuck Schumer on the tube yesterday talk about. She said, "All respect." You know, what's the phraseology you say before you criticize somebody? With all due respect.
With all due respect.
Yeah, which means it means the same thing.
I'm about to tell you something you don't want to hear.
I'm going to tell you something that's that makes you look stupid because I think you're stupid. But with all due respect, I'm telling you this. And I had one of my clients. I had his son-in-law who's brilliant by his own admission, and he said. No, I don't mean to hurt your feelings. I said, stop right there.
Yes,
I don't
you
want
do.
to
Apparently
baloney, you do too.
That's like qualifying the statement before you make it.
I mean, come on. You and I both know that that's not a true statement. Anyway, 340-1590, 340-1590. Even though my producer and I are by ourselves today, Joe Martek's a financial advisor, stockbroker. I'm going to talk about some different investments in a little bit, but I thought I might as well get the rest of the group out of the way. So the three of us started doing the shows, and then over a period of time, felt it necessary to add Ms. Victoria Lloyd, Remax of Stewart. When the real estate debacle hit, there was a whole bunch of misinformation, disinformation, new words like short sales that nobody had ever heard of before. And it became more critical to have somebody with a lot of experience and credibility in the real estate field. And this lady's only been in real estate since 1978. I've always called her Miss Bubbles because she's only got two speeds. She's either full blast or she's sleeping. She's a worker. She's as honest. I've never known a person more honest in my entire life. And she doesn't sift much, by the way. If you talk to her and you ask her a question, she's going to tell you flat out the truth. She doesn't sift very often, which sometimes gets her in trouble because she's flat out going to tell you. Anyway, the girl knows her stuff, which then brings me to Mike Paulus, mortgage broker, who became critical during this whole period of time because there were words out there that you couldn't get financing, which was never true. Then there was all kinds of new programs that came out, like reverse mortgages and the HARP 1 and then the HARP 2, then the USDA, no money down. And the USDA program had always been around. And I never even heard of it until Mike, but literally under certain circumstances, you can buy a primary residence without a dime down.
And even all that refinances of the Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac loans, what was that called? Was that HARP?
HARP.
That was HARP.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we got into the HARP program, and they're still available, these programs. So Mike educated a bunch of people, and here's the magic of what most people don't know. In fact, I had a client of mine who was a retired banker. And she said, I'm going to go buy a new place and sell this one. And I said, good, well, you should talk to Mike about a mortgage. She goes, oh, no, I know what I'm doing. I'm a banker. Don't worry. Mm-hmm. Well, a few weeks later, I get this call. Joe, you still got that guy's name that does mortgages? And I said, yeah, Phil, what happened? She goes, I got turned down. Well, then I had to hear the whole story of why. What had she had done? She's she's ace as his credit, but she forgot that she had co-signed for a nephew up north who defaulted. So now she's got that big mark on her credit report, and she got turned down for a mortgage. Well, what Mike does and it took her 2 or 3 weeks because you go into the normal bank and you fill out an application and they turn it into somebody else who turns it into somebody else, and then 2 or 3 weeks later.
Yeah, and it's got to come to the desk and sit there for a day, and then go to another desk and sit there for a day.
Mike will tell you in 15 minutes. I mean, even sometimes when you're still on the phone, he'll run a credit report and tell you where you stand, and based on that, he'll give you the parameters what you can and cannot do. So it doesn't cost you anything. So that's the magic of what Mike's been able to do, and he has been able to do wonderful things for a lot of people to get them into homes. But just very good experience. So the team started off: Joe Martek, financial advisor; Greg Fasula, attorney; Dan Warren, independent insurance agent; Ms. Victoria Lloyd, Remax of Stewart; and Mike Paulus, mortgage broker. And that's who we are today, but they're not here. It's Joe Martek's show by himself. Now they have excuses. Usually it's called they're working, or
it's not my week.
Well, they forget that part. That's.
Well, I didn't think it was my week.
We never have an absolute, that's my week, because things happen to get in the way, so I don't count on that.
And Dan comes more often.
Dan, it's usually Dan, but something must have happened to Dan. He didn't call me and tell me. Of course, he never does. He just usually shows. It's a pretty rare thing. 340-1590, 340-1590. Let's talk a little education. Now, a lot of people know what I'm going to talk about, and some people have a pretty good idea what I'm going to talk about. But I was talking about this at another station that I do at 4 o'clock today, 89.9 FM. And not only the producer didn't know, and he's not a young guy, but I had a couple of phone calls from other people that didn't know saying, thank you so much, Joe. We really appreciate the fact you educate. And that's what I try to do, is educate. So let's talk about mutual funds and exchange-traded funds. You heard such a thing?
Sure.
Because I've talked to them about
Of
that.
course. And I pay attention.
You pay attention. This is a scary thing. A woman that pays attention. I'm in trouble. Anyway, now I'm give you generalities, no specifics, no specific company. But let's just take an example. A company comes out and says, okay, we're going to start a mutual fund, and we're going to buy stock in 100 companies. And you now, as a customer, can come out and get a sliver of all 100 of those companies. And you end up being totally diversified by having 100 companies. Now, it can be 100, 200, 50, 500. It can be any type of number. And there's multiple companies that do this. But the concept is being somewhat diversified, even though some mutual funds are pretty much loaded in what I call big companies. Some are in small companies. Some are in mid-cap companies. Some are in foreign companies. And there's all kinds of different mutual funds.
So does the risk differ with those, whatever companies might be in this group of 100?
Of course.
Okay.
Let's say all the companies are in South America. Okay. Is that good or bad? Good question. And I don't know the answer. Mm-hmm. It depends.
Could be.
Yeah, could be. Could there be more upside potential? Could be. Mm-hmm. Depends on the companies and on the governments and who's shooting who today. You just don't know. European. They could say, hey, that could be a really solid basis, but they may not be as good as all American companies. And there could be one that's Orient, which has done extremely well, but there's no guarantee that they will continue to do. Some are in some portions of China, some not. There's hundreds and hundreds of these different companies, but all they do basically, most of them, is buy stock in a lot of different companies. And you come in and say, hey, I want a sliver of each one, and they charge a fee. Now, the fees vary anywhere from, I've seen from 0.25% all the way up to 5% per year that you really don't ever see. That they take a little bit out every single day. They call it the net asset value normally, and you end up with what's left over. Now, it's usually very, very small in comparison. However, let me just give you the parts that make the mutual fund a little bit, not necessarily bad, but just different. So you call your broker at 10 o'clock in the morning, and you say, okay, broker, I've got XYZ mutual fund. I want to sell it. Send me a check. Broker says, okay, no problem. It won't sell until 4 o'clock today because that's the rule. Now, you know what I've often said, the rules are like being Catholic. Don't ask questions, you just are one. These are the rules. So whether they make sense or not doesn't make any sense because these are the rules. What you cannot do with a mutual fund under every circumstance that I've ever seen, you can't buy or sell until the close of business. So if I want to call them at 10 in the morning and say, buy this, okay, fine. 4 o'clock today, when it closes, that's the price I'm going to pay. That price might have gone up during the course.
And does that purchase have to be in by a certain time? Or can you say, if it's down at 4 o'clock, don't do it?
Well, you can tell him. Yeah.
Okay.
But let's say you don't know the rules. And you just call them at 10 in the morning and say, do this, because your uncle or your cousin said this is a good idea. Mm-hmm. And you already have an account. So, and once you've got that account open, that broker has some time before he can actually get the money in his hand to do it. Or you might have the money sitting in cash in a money market account. And anyway, there's all kinds of variables there. But bottom line is you can't buy or sell until 4 o'clock when the market closes. Whatever the price is then, that's the price you're going to either get or buy, sell or buy. Another thing, and it's not a big deal, but it can be. Another thing, though, that really upsets people that I've seen, let's say you go into Joe Broker and say, hey, this is December 1st, and I want you to buy 100 shares of XYZ mutual fund. And he does. 4 o'clock today, you buy it. And let's say you put in $100,000. Use that as an example. You don't have to. You can put in a lot less. And then comes January, and your account balance went down to $90,000 because the market took a hit. But then you get a 1099 that says you made money and you lost money. And you say, wait a minute. I put in 100.
I only have 90.
I've only got 90. And it
but
says,
I owe them taxes.
And I owe taxes. Wait a minute. Is this?
Well, I could see everybody getting that news would be very angry.
Yes. Okay. What 99% of the people are never told is the mutual fund company went and bought some of this stock 10 years ago. And after you bought that stock, they sold some of it. Well,
and it made money.
And it made money, that one. So you now are a part of that pie. So even though your account value went down because you got in for like only 30 days or 20 days,
you have to help pay those taxes on the gain.
You have to help pay them on that gain, which really doesn't make people.
Is it like gain on that quarter or gain
for 10 years?
Oh,
they might have bought it 10 years ago, and they've never sold it. So everybody has.
Now, you as my money guy, would you find that out ahead of time before we made that purchase?
No. It's almost impossible to go back and say, show me every single stock and what days you bought them, because they can buy and sell anytime, the mutual fund company, according to their charter.
And then they can spread that cost out.
Then they're going to spread that out amongst all of the owners.
Sure.
I mean, it's just like if you own a house with 10 people and you bought it for $100,000 today and you sold it for $300,000 later, but you came in and said as a new partner the day before it sold for $290,000. And your shares, you make $4.11, but because you shared with everybody the $200,000 in profit, you had to pay a capital gain on your portion. That's the agreement. Okay. So somebody came up with the idea of exchange-traded funds. Exchange-traded means I can buy it at 10 o'clock, I can sell it at 10:15. It trades like a share of stock rather than the mutual fund rules 4 o'clock. Which people say, gee, that sounds a little bit better, because when I call my broker and I'm looking at the price of it right now, the price is up and it's 10:30 this morning, I want to sell it right now, he can say, okay, fine, it's sold. I mean, right now, here's the price we just got, bam, right this second. And literally, if I place an order, I did it on the phone right in front, and I can do it. In fact, I had clients yesterday that had inherited some stock, and they wanted to give some money to a grandson and wanted to sell some of it. So literally on the phone, okay, here's, bam, it's sold right now. You can't change your mind. It's over. And that's it. That's it. You can buy it again if you want, but now we got a new price probably. It could be higher or lower. It could be the same. You just don't know. So the exchange-traded fund basically is just like a share of stock. You can buy it at 9 o'clock, 9:30 in the morning when the market opens. You can sell it all the way to 4 o'clock and buy it or sell it, so it stands on its own. And back to the example of the mutual fund, where we buy it in December for $100,000, but my value goes down in January to 90, and I still have a tax consequence because they sold some stuff during the scope of that mutual fund at a profit. The exchange-traded fund, yours stands on its own. Your shares stand on their own based on the second you bought them. You do not get mixed with everybody else.
So you're only going to pay taxes on earnings that went in your pocket.
That went literally in your pocket or in your account. So the concept of the exchange-traded funds, they're really making a revolution in the mutual fund business. More and more companies are leaning that way. Because, to me, it just makes more sense.
Sure. I'm sitting here wondering why you would do it the other way at all.
Because you have forever.
Okay.
And some of the biggest.
But those were just the rules. That's how we do it.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's just like being Catholic.
Them are the rules around here.
And we couldn't eat meat on Friday. We changed the rules. Now we can. But the point is,
lightning didn't strike and the world didn't come to an end. Right?
The point. Yeah, nothing really happened.
The first time you had a cheeseburger.
Price of fish went down. But nothing serious. The point I'm trying to say is that there's. The rules are the rules are, and there can be modifications to rules, or they find a loophole to start something else that is just as good or maybe better. Isn't this called America, where we have free enterprise and entrepreneurs, et cetera, et cetera? So literally, the concept of the exchange-traded fund I like tremendously. So now, let's look at another whole avenue. Another whole avenue. People are saying, listen, by the way, I don't know, but if I was listening to CNBC on the radio on the way here this morning. And
you have XM?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sirius XM?
Yeah.
Yeah, whichever they are. Is that one of those or both?
It's only one now.
They're Sirius XM,
yeah,
one word.
One started, then there was two, and now
there's one.
Yeah.
Anyway, so they had the Republicans are on today talking about getting rid of Obamacare, big time, and they are ripping Obama up one side, down the other.
Well, he's working to do something to make that legacy stick. I don't know what he's doing.
He's meeting this afternoon with the Democrats to say, hey, protect Obamacare, and the Republicans.
I just know on January 21st, we are no longer going to be calling it Obamacare.
We're going to be calling it not so. Anyway, what they were talking about was, and they were being very unkind. Yep, he said you could keep your doctor. Well, that's not true. He said you could keep your coverage. Yes, not true. Said your cost was going to go down. That's not true.
They also said 20 million people have coverage, and that's not true.
So the thing, what happened is they went through the whole thing, and then Ryan reiterated that, and then Pence came in and reiterated that. And what they're saying is that day one, that's going to be one of the priorities, is to appeal, repeal, get rid of Obamacare, but they made it very clear that it's not going to directly affect people immediately because it would be unfair. You can't just all of a sudden take something away from somebody that they've got. So
why not?
Well, because what if you're not covered anymore?
But what happened when we had our doctors and they were like, oh, we don't take your insurance anymore? That happened instantly.
So what happens is they're going to try to ease into this and not hurt people. So it's going to be interesting. So there's going to be some debate and lots of news. Boy, I can see the 6 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 7 o'clock news and 11 o'clock news today after both sides of these people get arguing about what's going to go on. Anyway, I just thought I'd throw out.
Sure, and you know that there's several plans already that Republicans have been working on.
Of course.
And they're going to take the best of everything that people have come up with. They're going to have a plan before they even get in there.
Well, supposedly...
Just like the wall. It's already happening.
That's what they were saying today, that they are working diligently on this because Trump has made it his firm commitment that day one, this thing is going to be changed. Now, again, very often it may be changed, but it may not be effective for 6 weeks, 6 months. We don't know how long. And nobody knows. Maybe even they don't know.
I'm just hoping that they go, there's not going to be a penalty this year when you file your taxes, because that's what I'm looking forward to.
Well,
no penalty.
I was talking to another one of my buddy brokers yesterday, and both of us predicted that the market would take a hit right after the first of the year. Now, it's called why. Well, the market did.
Does it usually do that?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
But what happened is the market took a big surge when Trump got elected, and I call it the Trump bump. Some call it the Trump rally. I like Trump bump better. Anyway, the Trump rally where the market really started to take off, and technically the market's a bit overpriced, but by pure techniques, and a lot of speculation, including myself, were saying that Trump is going to do tax reform. So why would I sell something in 2016 that is not subject to tax reform? I'll go sell it in 2017
and wait and see.
And then now, if I sold it December 30th, I'm 2016. January 2nd or 3rd, I'm 2017. I've also got another year and 4 months before I have to worry about taxes. But the bottom line is, if there's going to be tax reform, it might be to my advantage to wait. So he and I were both talking that I expected yesterday the market to take a bit of a hit, and it didn't. It came up again. On the way in this morning, it was up again. Now, it's not up to the 20,000 point, which has been predicted.
But you know what happens with everything that's up?
Oh,
everything that goes up must come
at some
down.
point, it will. The key is there is also this speculation that Trump and company are going to do magnificent things for this country, which I'm 100% in favor of, and the economy will continue to bump along, but better, and people will make more money, which is better, and things will get better. Well, which means maybe the market will absorb this overpriced and continue to go up anyway. So there is that speculation. Now, what part of that speculation that worries me is in history. One guy comes in and thinks he can change everything, and he might, but boy, it ain't easy in our system with all of these politicians sitting around.
But see, he's drained the swamp.
Well, he's trying to.
And there are less politicians and more business people Business people and military people.
But here
Gotta love it.
But that's his advisor's quote and his cabinet. What about the elected senators and congressmen who are the ones that have to come up and make this legislation? He can veto.
But see, they're always going to want to be reelected.
I know.
So they're going to do whatever the people are happy about.
Well, here comes the tweeter.
And even Democrats are going to do it, too.
Here comes the tweeter. This man is brilliant with all of these tweets because he doesn't have to talk. He has a press conference every single day with a tweet. And he gets all this publicity about what's going on. Like yesterday, the Republicans wanted to do this ethics thing, and he said, we got 9 things on the table that are 10 times more important. Why are you wasting your time on that? Well, that stopped that dead in its track. Just dead in its tracks, which made Ryan look good and made Trump we're back to understanding, hey, we have priorities, and the priorities, let's get this country back on track. Anyway, now I'm going to go back into money. I don't know how I got sidetracked. Oh, I know how I got sidetracked.
Yeah, it's the tax reform.
Well, not only that, I was talking about Obamacare. So here's where I differ from what I'm hearing the Republicans on. And I've even converted Dan. And that is, if you're 65 in this country, not 64 and 11 months and 29 days, but are 65, you qualify for Medicare. Now, you have paid for it out of your paychecks for years and years and years, but when you turn 65, you get what I consider to be excellent federal health insurance. And the way the system works, pretty simply, and let me just give you a quick scenario.
But you continue to pay for it because it comes out of your Social Security.
Well, but let's talk about the cost. Let's just talk about the cost. So now I'm a retired person, and they're taking $110 a month out of my Social Security check, and I get Medicare, which pays everything but $700 or $800 in the hospital bill. That's my deductible. And then Medicare picks up 80% of the doctor bill, period. Now, when they say it's because doctors accept Medicare, well, if you're in Florida and you're not a pediatrician, you accept Medicare. Otherwise, you're out of business. So now you say, well, wait a minute. What about that $700 or $800 deductible, and what about that other 20%? Well, you can get a supplement to pick that up, and the cost is, now, don't put this in concrete, but it's roughly $200 a month. So now for $300 a month, I pick up my Social Security deductible. They take $100 out, and I pay another $200, and I've got 100% coverage. Covers doctor, hospital, everything in the world that is, it's really comprehensive. Great, great program. Now, let's just say I can't afford the $200 a month, or you opt not to do that. They also have managed care, which includes HMOs, health maintenance organizations, and PPOs, preferred providers, that you don't have to pay the extra $200 a month, and you might pick up some co-pays, $10, $20, $30, but you need to just shop and look at those things. So what I have been talking about for a couple of years now is that it is discrimination that just because I turned 65, I now qualify for what I consider as good a health insurance coverage as there is in America, and it's, quote, affordable, even though I paid $3 or whatever I paid per $100 out of my paychecks to go into the fund to cover Medicare. But if I'm 64 and 11 months and 29 days, I cannot have it. I think it's wrong. I think everybody in America should have the same exact healthcare.
It depends on how you pay into it. I mean, you had a job from probably, let's just say 16.
Right.
You started a part-time job when you were 16, and you worked all the way to 65.
Right.
You've contributed
lots
to that system.
Right.
And there are many, many people. I have 2 in my family. One died at 58. The other died at 61. Never collected a penny, but paid in.
Point becomes that happens.
The thing is, you've got to pay in before you start collecting.
Okay, so now let's say, now look at Dan sitting over here, and he's not here, but he's sitting right there. Dan and his wife have a Cadillac health insurance plan. Now, they're in their 60s.
And under Obamacare, if you have a Cadillac plan, you're paying extra just because.
He is paying $3,000 a month for health insurance, which is more than the average person makes in this county, just for health insurance. Because the premiums have gotten up so high, but Dan is paranoid about his health because he's had health problems, and he wants to make sure that if something catastrophic occurs, that he's covered, and his wife. So On the other hand, he looks at me sitting next to him, who I'm over 65, and I am paying $110 a month. Point is, where's the equity in
See,
that
and I'm
system?
a bit younger than you are.
Right.
And I have no coverage because the premium is ridiculous.
It's ridiculous.
And what I'm giving out as premium, I could just give to my doctor.
So here comes the next thing. How does this get paid for? Well, if we take what health insurance costs that employers are paying or individuals are paying, and instead of having $3 or
Well, trust me, when Obamacare kicked in, a lot less employers were able to stay.
Well, they changed the rules so the employers got rid of people.
Right.
Or they changed the hours.
Right. Or it's no longer a benefit.
Yeah, no longer. Right.
No longer a benefit. Because it used to be a benefit.
The cost is paid by somebody, somehow or other.
Somebody, somewhere.
Well, if everybody contributed from their paycheck instead of $3 or $2.50 or whatever the figure is, $5, $6, pick a number, and everybody had this comprehensive health insurance coverage to cover their families regardless of their age, all of a sudden we don't have to have this benefit coming from a company, which might be paying $500 a month per employee or whatever. They could increase their pay. Those that don't have any health and coverage,
But they won't.
Well, yes, they will, because competition. Here's another thing. You'll like this one. You'll disagree with me, but you'll like it. You ever hear Bill Clinton say something brilliant? Okay, no. Your answer is no. I can see it on your face. You're looking. You're searching.
I was thinking real hard.
Here's what happened. Have you seen the inequity in wages in America? Where
Sure.
People at the top make millions,
yeah,
and the people at the bottom get minimum wage.
But they're there for a reason, and
I know. So Bill Clinton was on talking about his foundation, but somebody snuck a question into him and said, what about this inequity in wages, where it's not fair, where these people at the top are making a fortune and the people at the bottom are not making anything? And Bill Clinton said, and I'm going to have a call here and we're going to take in a second, but he said this will take care of itself. And I will explain that in a minute because I happen to agree with him. All right, 340-1590, 340-1590. It says we got Terry on the phone. It's Joe Martek. You're on the radio.
Hi, good morning, everyone. This is Terry. Thank you for taking my call.
Terry, thanks for calling.
I'm retired. I live in Stewart, and I'm going to be moving, and I'm looking for a financial advisor in Fort Myers. Do I keep my one in Stewart, or do I look for one that I'm moving and I want my money to stay with me?
Boy, what a magic, wonderful question. And I don't know the answer, because if you've got somebody that's doing a good job for you here, 90% of what you do is on the telephone, is it not? Did I lose? No, yeah.
It is, but I think I just recently retired, and my financial planner has moved on in Stewart. He's retired.
Okay. And
he's referring me to someone else, and I don't know that person that would be taking over my account, and I'm thinking, do I stick with this person?
Well, here's what happens. First, in this business, you have to have the warm, fuzzy feeling. You meet somebody.
It seems like you're forced into a decision here, too.
Yeah. Well, okay, if you're going to go with somebody else, whether you want to go with the guy that you've been appointed to, well, you should meet with him and talk to him and see what his philosophy is, no matter where he's at. Now, even if you didn't meet him face to face, you should work on the phone. And you've got X number of investments, and are those investments doing the right thing? Are you happy with them? Is the guy that you had doing a good job? The whole concept is, as we don't get younger, Terry, our objectives might change also. Like when you were 40 or 50, you didn't think like you're now if you're retiring in your 60s or wherever you might be. So goals, objectives, methodologies might change. So whether it's a broker in Afghanistan or Hawaii or Fort Myers or Stewart, I don't know that it makes any difference until you find the person that you feel comfortable with, because 90% of what you're going to do from that point on is going to be by the phone or in the mail. And, just like we're talking on the radio right now, we could be meeting in person and doing exactly the same thing we're doing. The only difference is if we were by ourselves, we would have statements in front of us. We can fax them. We can email them. I can look at numbers. You can look at numbers. We can talk. We can meet. So I'm having a hard time giving you a straight answer. My thing is, before I would leave, I would meet with a person or two here and just see if you have the comfort level, including a guy named Joe Martek, by the way, Terry.
I respect what you say on the phone. This is a terrific show and wealth of knowledge.
Well,
every week.
Thank you. Oh, by the way, when this thing streams live on WPSL.com, even if you're in Fort Myers, you'll be able to see and watch and hear the show again. And I also do the one at 4 o'clock, which is WCNO.com. So we stream live. But I
did not know that you do a 4 o'clock show as well.
Yeah, now you know. So I'm.
Yeah, it's on another station.
It's on another station. That's what
I love the WPSL. I have another question. So
sure.
I also have 11 properties since I'm retiring now officially, that I have to sell and liquidate.
Okay.
That are in the Treasure Coast. So that's probably why my concern is, I have someone new that's being forced on me, and I want to go with someone I trust and liquidate those properties and take the money over to Fort Myers with me.
Why? See, if they liquidate, you're talking residential or commercial pieces of property?
Both.
Okay.
Residential and
Okay.
commercial.
Now, here you have a double-edged sword. Ready? We talk about Victoria Lloyd, Remax of Stewart. We talk about Mike Paulus, mortgage broker, and we also have Vince Rosino, CPA, in Stewart. So when you're going to have to put together more than one head when you start to look at taxes, because when you have commercial or residential properties that you rent, as you know, you've got recapture of depreciation, et cetera. So you got to look at the tax implications. Are we going to sell all of them now? Are we going to sell them gradually? What's the market? Well, you know all the questions. So what I've done with our group is try to put together a group of local professionals to answer all these questions for people. And again, 90% of this stuff is done, can be done via the phone or through the mail or via email or faxes. Physically sitting and doing, it's like a real estate closing. You don't have to go to the closing to get paid. You can do them through the mail. You can do them with wire transfers. You've been doing such things, so you understand what I'm talking about. So my guess where I'm going is it probably would be a smart thing for you and I to sit down, have a meeting, and let's look intelligently, get a couple of opinions, see if we have the warm, fuzzy feeling, if there's something we can accomplish together, and then take it one step at a time.
Okay. Any other advice for me?
Well, I like Fort Myers. I love Stewart. In fact, if I didn't live in Stewart, I'd live in Fort Myers. Honestly, when it was kind of said that, I thought you might be a setup, because I've talked to some of my buds that know I do the radio show, and I thought they might be just putting you on to say about Fort Myers, because if I didn't live in Stewart, I'd live in Fort Myers. I love downtown Fort Myers. I love downtown Stewart. Anyway. And I'm a boater. See, I'm a water person. Mm-hmm. One of the things that happens, I love all of the shallow waters over at Fort Myers better than I love them over here, and all the way down to Naples and up to Boca Grande. But I also love the Bahamas.
It'd be harder to get to the Bahamas from Fort Myers.
It takes 2 more days.
There you go.
2 more days.
I guess. I mean, poor baby, I'd have to come across the ditch and take 2 more days over and 2 more days back instead of a 2-week trip. I might make a 3-week trip. What a problem!
And what kind of boat do you have?
I've got an 18 and a 41.
Very nice.
The 41 goes to the Bahamas, and it's very comfortable. And as soon as I leave the Bahamas, I thank God every year, and then I ask him for 1 more year. And the boat has never broken on the way or there in the Bahamas. I know. This is kind of a curse when you say that. I've just been so lucky with boats. It's just been good. But I'm Terry, when you pay attention, one of the perks of getting old is you pay attention to some details that you may not have paid attention to when you were 16 or 18 or even 28 or 38 or 48. But that's it. Why don't we do this, Terry?
I can put him on hold, take his number.
Yeah, put you on hold.
I would like to do that, and I think I better keep my wife away from you, because you sound like the catch of the day. You're a boater, and you go to the Bahamas. Wonderful.
On the other hand, Terry, let me talk to your wife. Hang on a second. We'll put you on hold, and we'll get your name and number, and I'll call you back. We'll set up a time. We'll get together and see what we can accomplish.
Wonderful.
Thanks.
Thank you all.
Thank you for calling. 340-1590, 340-1590. Yeah, that's not an easy answer to which agent. You know, I know people that have agents that are still. Did he hang up? Okay, that happens. I know people that have agents up north, and they've.
Why don't you give out your number?
I should do that. 678-7725. 678-7725 is my office number.
Okay, and then Terry can give you a call.
There you go. 678-7725. Yeah, there's no easy answers to a lot of things because every single person is an individual.
Yeah, that is a real personal kind of choice. Yeah, there's like...
Yeah,
and there's no wrong answer or right answer to that.
No, it's called what are my goals? And if
I'm
going to
maybe his outgoing broker knows somebody in Fort Myers.
I'm sure he does.
Or
hey, listen,
talk with you.
Everybody does. I mean,
but it sounds like he's pushed into making a change.
Well, yeah.
So his options are...
If his broker is retiring or whatever, and he says, hey, you need to find somebody new or I'll find somebody for you, whether that person is here or there, is a good question.
Yeah.
I don't... Again, I've got clients all over the state. Most are here. I've got clients in 13 states. Hey, the phone works. It's
and you can Skype and you can be face to face.
You can do all kinds of
There's just so much
stuff.
technology now, and text messaging. I mean, instant.
There's not a whole bunch of reasons today in today's technology that we have to physically sit face to face, except it's
unless your broker takes you out to lunch, then it's a little different.
Well, I try to get the clients to take me to lunch.
Okay.
Anyway, 340-1590, 340-1590, 340-1590. So. Back again. We were edumacating here for a while. How much time do we have left?
We got about 6 minutes.
Oh man, It's amazing how this program. Thank you, Terry, for calling and taking up some time with that question. I want to talk about a variable annuity. I've been talking about this for a couple weeks, trying to give some education because there's all kinds of different annuities. But let's just talk about generalities. What's an annuity? It's a contract with an insurance company. Why do I have it? Well, if I put money into that contract, it's tax deferred, meaning if I don't take anything out, there's no taxes until I take it out. When I take it out, it's ordinary income, no other form of tax. If I die, forget that. When I die, there's no probate. Money goes to beneficiaries. And last and not least, if I get sued, it can't be taken away from me. So you take a guy like Terry with multiple pieces of property, investment properties, getting sued is a big thing to worry about. That's why we carry liability insurance. Now, attorneys love liability insurance because if you've got $1 million, you're probably going to get sued for $5 million. If you've got $100,000, you're probably going to get sued for $1 million. Point is, they want to get every dime they can from the insurance company. But if you have assets and you're worth even more, hey, this is Sue America. They're going to try to get it. Well, a lot of people that have, let's say, high risk potential, the annuity contract protects them because they're not subject to attachment by creditors, period. Now, variable annuity has got two arms, right arm, left arm. Left arm says, we're in the market. We're in the market, and we're in what looks like mutual funds. They don't call them that, but they look just like them, and they go up and down. They can be exchange-traded funds the same, but they go up and down with the market depending. And you can move money around from fund to fund. Doesn't have to all be in one. That's the norm with most of the companies. The right side says, hey, in case the market doesn't perform, what we're going to do is we're going to put some guarantees into this picture. Now, what I'm supposed to say at this point is you have to be concerned about which company you're dealing with. You have to be concerned about the claims paying ability of these companies. This is a normal disclosure. So guys like me only deal with the highest rated companies, period. We just don't want to talk about anything else. We want no aggravation. And annuity companies have just, once they're admitted in the state of Florida to do business, you pick up all the protection of the state besides. So the annuity contract has these two arms. Left side, I'm in the market. Right side, the insurance companies very often say, here's what we're going to do. We're going to give you one of our guarantees is that we will guarantee you a 5% income on whatever you put into that contract for the rest of your life. You say, oh, well, that sounds pretty good. And we, the insurance company, say once a year we'll look back at the investments, and depending on how we calculate it, we will go up if you went up, so that next year your income goes up or your guarantee goes up. So let's just take an example. I put $100,000 in. During the course of the year, it ends up at $120,000, which has happened a few years. And I take 5% on $100,000. That means $5,000. Next year, I've got 5% on $120,000, which would be $6,000. Now, let's just say the next year the market tanks and it goes down to $50,000. Insurance company says, hey, we leave you at that $120,000 mark, and what we're going to say is no matter what happens, you're now going to get a 5% income, and some go to 6 or 7 depending on how old you are, for the rest of your life, and it can never go down, period. So if you're stuck living to be 115, most of these companies, especially the ones that I look at, they're going to make sure you're protected all the way through. Then the next question is oftentimes, well, hey, what happens when I die? Okay, back again. We got two figures. We got the left side says over here is the market value. Let's say I put in 100, now it's worth 150, and I die. Well, hey, guess what? Take the 150 for the family and go. Hallelujah. But the insurance company says, well, what if the market never went up? Very often they will put in a 5% per year figure growth to make sure that in case you die on the wrong day, your family's protected. So you just have to look at these different companies and say, hey, right side says insurance, I'm protected no matter what. Left side says if the market wins, I win. If the market loses, I still am protected.
And you're doing better than the bank.
And I'm doing better than the bank. And that's the whole concept, is that I know I've got that money. And each time they step it up, it can't go back down. Now, they have other rules. Number one, these are not short-term investments. They're not designed to be short-term. All your money goes to work for you the first day.
That's a contract between me and that company?
Oh, yeah.
Can it be transferred to my spouse, or
Yeah.
it would? Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
You can change ownership, or you can have a beneficiary, which means you die at your spouse's.
And it's just over.
It's over.
Mm-hmm.
Very often you can put partners in, so it's both of yours. So there's all kinds of wrinkles that you just let your mind wander, because almost everything that you can ever think of,
They've already thought of.
They've already thought of, and these things are available. And when I sit and counsel somebody, I'm looking, what's your goal and objective? Let's tailor make this thing to fit your goal and objective. So the concept of this, quote, annuity contract is to say, hey, market works, I'm happy, I'm making money. Market doesn't work, I'm protected just in case.
Or if I die, my family's protected as well.
There you go.
Cool. See, I learned it.
340-1590.
We're out of time.
Out?
Well, you got time to say goodbye.
Hey, goodbye, and until next week, Terry, thanks for calling.
You've been listening to the TEAM MARTEK Hour. The TEAM MARTEK Hour is a paid program. The content was provided by the advertiser. WPSL, its staff, management, and ownership were not responsible for its content. Investment involves risk. Prior to making any investment, an investor should meet suitability requirements. Past results are not necessarily indicative of future performance. Neither the opinions expressed nor the information provided constitutes a recommendation to purchase or provide investment advice. The material presented is not a substitute for obtaining professional advice from a qualified person or firm. Securities offered through Centaurus Financial, member FINRA and SIPC. Tune in again next Wednesday at 11:05 for the TEAM MARTEK Hour here on WPSL 1590.